Hello, my name's Elijah Wells, and today's review is Ray Mendoza's and Alex Garland's new movie, Warfare. Based on the experience that Ray Mendoza, who's the director of this movie, and his experience in the Iraq War, more specifically in late 2006, in the wake of the Battle of Ramanidad, when he and his comrades are stationed in an apartment within the city, only to realize that the Al-Qaeda is pretty much slowly but surely surrounding them and causing a lot of escalations and gunfire and grenade exchanges, and of course, need to get out of there. Co-director Alex Garland is going through a really big resurgence in his career at the moment. Although he has been nominated for an Oscar for his screenplay, particularly in Ex Machina, and also his biggest climbing achievement as a film writer is coming back, particularly with the 28 Years Later. A long-awaited sequel to the 28 Years and 28 Weeks, 28 Days and 28 Weeks Later, a famous film franchise about zombies in London. But of course, particularly with Alex Garland's more recent films, which have a more political subtext, particularly with Civil War, which has since garnered a lot of controversy, particularly with how politically toxic America is, particularly now under President Trump, and as well as his other movies like Annihilation and Men, which have garnered a lot of praise and critical acclaim, particularly in indie film circles. And for him to team up with a person who actually experienced the war first hand, being Ray Mendoza, who again actually served in that very same battle that happened in the Iraq War, and this is his directorial debut. So much so, he also not just co-directed the movie, but also co-wrote the movie as well, with Alex Garland in hand. Having a person who experienced these events as they were, as of course the movie's selling point was that it was based on memory, not on true story, but on the memory of the director and co-writer Ray Mendoza, who does a very interesting, cool trick, which is again reminiscent to something like United 93, where the film is played on real time, as in you can legit feel the absolute attention reach almost that volcanic point where you can see the movie start from point A to point B, then you have to, within that hour and a half time, you have to literally go through every minute of the character. It's not just like, oh, 5 minutes later they were here, or 10 minutes later they were there. You have to essentially walk with the character, be with the character for every step of the way, which is again a very enthralling way to bring about the tension of this movie, which is again really overwhelming, particularly the situation that the characters were in that movie. The film exacerbates and boils up the tension, not just through the film's real-time approach with this film's narrative, but also how really chaotic the editing of this film is. It's essentially like most action films where they quickly cut away to this, then quickly cut away to that, then quickly cut away to this, then. And of course, with that logic in mind, and particularly this movie is set in the military, you feel like you have a sense of like disorientation and just really just being thrown into the midst of like a brutal chaos, in my opinion, which is again a lot of thought has been put into it. It's like, I think if you take like a lot of action movies with that approach into editing, where they do cut to this, then cut to that, then cut to this, then cut to that, then cut to this, then cut to that, then I feel like it just makes the scene a little bit too overbearing and just makes the scene unintentionally a bit too much hard to watch, and pretty much has to readjust your mind to what's happening. But I think in that logic, knowing how this movie executes it with its incredible editing and how really chaotic it is, and of course there's not a lot of long shots or one-ers like really small like tracking shots. Again, it just goes to show how really claustrophobic and really really frantic the energy of this movie is. Even the sound effects just add to the factor that this movie is somewhat of a very overwhelming experience, particularly in the when the jet just flies over the small city of Ramadid, which is in Iraq, of course being set in the Iraq War. Again, how it flies past and how the dust like caves over that one small street, and how of course that noise just almost pierces through like the entire screen. Like, even though again this apparently was shot in IMAX as well, and of course IMAX is known for like more of a louder experience, more of a bigger experience. Again, I feel like again Alex Garland did use his expertise about that IMAX technology, not just through his previous works like in Civil War, but as well as this movie, where he definitely understood how really aggressive like the sound effects are going to be in this movie, particularly with the mindset of his co-director, who again served in that war, and how really brutal and very pungent, and how much of a punch these sound effects can really possess, particularly in the scenes that have a lot of gunfire in this movie, where even though the Iraqi fighters have like more traditional like rifles or something like that, and for the American ones they have the more militarized stuff. I'm not a gun expert, I'm British, and they are like incredibly loud and piercing. Like, this is not a critique. I think this is again more into the logic that this is based on the memory of its co-director Raymond Mendoza, who again went through this, and how really loud and really uncomfortable it is for the ears these really loud gun noises are, which is again really entrances the film's like really tense atmosphere. What I would want to see out of this movie as well is exploring how the people in this platoon got to how where they were and what their life was before then, and maybe if it's something like Jarhead, that Sam Mendes movie, see how they coped with the war like straight after this movie. But the movie does take a major left turn, as in like no, since again all these except with Ray Mendoza, who all the rest of the characters except of course Miller, who all have different aliases from their real life people, and rest of them to not go public with their identities. Again, I'm not sure what the logic behind it was. Either it's just a way, keeping their identity safe from either foreign or domestic terrorists or something like that, or they just don't want to talk about their experiences in that war. But again, I thought it was going to be like again like Jarhead, like what was their life beforehand and what was their life after that, which is again really interesting to see. And of course the cast members do give out some pretty good performances, like Will Porter, Kit Connor, Cosmo Jarvis, and Barone Warner Tai, sure if I mispronounced your name. Again, all give out some really good performances like throughout the entirety of the film. The authenticness of Alex Garland and the memories of Ray Mendoza definitely do shine through in this movie, even though it's definitely a flawed movie in my opinion, and definitely not the strongest of Alex Garland's filmography. But however, this is definitely a really intense and really atmospheric and pretty harsh and brutal movie about the realities of being a member of a platoon in a US-led war against Iraq that overthrew Saddam Hussein, and the war unfortunately just dragged on and on for years until eventually in the early 2010s. And this movie is pretty much about the one man's experience with his whole platoon and his whole brotherhood of soldiers as they are confined into just one apartment, and they must fight their way out after finding themselves surrounded by Al-Qaeda forces. Even though the movie keeps some of its mystery definitely intact, particularly what the background of the soldiers were, like how they got there and what their life was afterwards. Either our respect for soldiers, or it's just something I don't want to talk about, particularly how traumatic these events are. But also, this is again a movie that is so much more exemplified given the movie's real-time approach with its narrative, particularly like something like United 93. You have to step with the characters every minute and every second of the way. And of course, even with the movie's like really bombastic and very overwhelming sense of dread, which is amplified with its from sound effects, which goes to show how really committed Alex Garland is bringing Ray Mendoza's vision, or not just his vision, but his memories, and how he's very respectful of these, despite of how very controversial the Iraq War is in American politics and in American history. So for Warfare, I'm feeling a 7 out of 10 on this one. So, what do you think of Warfare? Let me know in the comments below. Like this video, subscribe to my channel, follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, and Blue Sky and Threads. And this is Elijah Wells, and bye.